Happy creating! I'm so excited to get to our last two projects for our spring art session. We are going to be working with watercolor for our first project. And then we're doing tie-dyeing on the second project. So what you're going to need for your first project is all of the supplies that came in your week 5 make and take kits. So your watercolors, your art compass, your 3 pieces of paper, and I believe that's it, because you already had your paintbrushes, you already had your glue sticks, and you already have your black Sharpie, okay? So you'll need all of those and a little glass of water. So go ahead, I'm gonna press pause, get my area all set up, and when you're ready to continue, hit that play button. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, friends, is we're actually going to take one full sheet of paper, and this is watercolor paper. So there's going to be one side that has a little bit more texture than the other side. We're going to want to paint on the textured side today, okay? And we're actually going to do a combination of our techniques. So we've talked about wet on dry, wet on wet, right? So we're going to do both of those with our watercolors today. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're going to wanna get your paintbrush wet. And this has a little bit of blue left on it. Yours probably won't. It will probably be clear, but that's almost kind of better that mine's blue, so that way you can kind of see what I'm doing. So this is just water. So I'm painting a little rectangle with just water, and then I'm going to dip into my blue. I'm going to do dark blue and light blue, and I'm going to do try and hold it where you guys can see it. So I'm just gonna add some strokes here to the background, and then I'm going to blend it out. So I don't really want it to be all one color. I want there to be some variations of different colors. So that's why we're doing a combination of the wet on dry and the wet on wet. So do you see how much darker the wet on dry is? So this is wet on wet, where I paint water first and then paint the color. And then this is just watercolor on the paper. So I'm gonna kind of blend those together. I'm gonna add a little bit of light blue into that. So we're doing our background blue. Get this whole thing painted. And we're going to be mindful of our brush strokes, friends, because obviously when this dries, you will be able to see any brush strokes that you have. So I'm just doing a combination here of wet on wet and wet on dry. If you want it to be darker, you can do the wet on dry for most of it. If you want most of it to be a lighter shade of blue, then you can do the wet on wet, okay? So there's our background. We're gonna put that off to the side to dry. Then we're going to grab our 2 pieces of paper that are left over. And we're going to take our art compass. I don't know if you guys have ever used these or not, but these are a lot of fun. So these are to draw circles, perfect circles, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our pencil sticks out just a little bit further than the point, okay? We're going to open it up. I'm going to open my first one up to about 1 1/2. And if you open yours, there's going to be numbers right here. So I'm doing my first circle at about 1 1/2. And I'm going to put the point down. That's pretty big. Let's make it a little bit smaller, actually. Let's do our first circle at 1. That is just too big of a circle. Can you guys see that? That's like the whole piece of paper. All right, so we're gonna do our first circle at 1. And again, I'm putting that point down, and then I am just spinning this. And it's going to make a circle. Okay, and then inside the 1 inch circle, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch circle. So I'm going to find that point in the middle of my circle from the metal tip and put that metal tip back there. And then I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch circle with my compass. Now, if you want to practice this a bit on your paper bag, you absolutely can. We can erase these lines, that's no big deal. Okay, so I'm going to do one 1 inch circle with the 1/2 inch inner circle. And then I'm going to do one 1/2 inch circle with an even smaller circle inside of that. So there's my 1/2 inch circle. So I'm going to then bring it all the way closed, almost all the way closed, and make a smaller circle. And if you're having a hard time with the compass, if you just want to draw your circles, you absolutely can. If you want to eyeball them, you can do that too. I like the art compass. They are a bit tricky to get used to, but another tip is if you put your metal piece down and then spin, hold this steady, hold your compass steady, and then spin the paper around. Let me see if I can't show you. So if you hold this steady and then spin the paper around, that's going to give you another way to do a circle, okay? So we've got a total of 4 circles. And then I'm going to erase these extra lines so we don't get confused. And if you want to do that, now would be a good time to do that on yours too. Okay. So we've got a total of 4 circles, 1 inch, 1/2 an inch, 1/2 an inch, and then a smaller circle inside. So I'm going to keep it at about a 1/2 an inch. And I am going to make a moon shape. So a 1/2 a circle. So I'm going to put the metal piece down, and I'm going to drag this 1/2 a circle. So kind of, we're going to be making a tulip. Okay. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to close this off, but instead of going across straight, if you find right here is my middle point where the metal piece was. So I'm going to come up there, okay, and mark my middle point. Let's see. And I can erase these lines, obviously. I'm going to go like that. So it's kind of going to look like a Pac-Man. So I'm going to draw that down to both of these, close it down to the center point. And I know that you can't really see it, but there's a little indentation on your paper. You'll be able to see yours. So I'm going to erase that marker. Okay. And then I'm just going to take a regular pencil and I'm going to draw the same outline on the inside of my tulip. Pretty similar. All right, so get all of your circles and your tulip drawn. Press pause, and when you're ready to move on, go ahead and hit that play button. I'm gonna jump right into our butterfly and our stems, okay? So for the butterfly, what we're going to do is we're going to close our art compass all the way. So the pointy thing and the pencil are touching. And we're going to make, I need to bring my pencil down a little bit because it's just a little bit too short. So to move your pencil, this just pops open and then you can move it down, up or down. There we go. You want it to be just a little bit longer, the pencil to be a little bit longer, okay? All right, so I'm gonna put my point down. And then I'm going to do 2 little half circles. If I could get it to work. Maybe it's a little bit too long. These art compasses are tricky to get used to. All right, so I'm gonna do 2 little half circles there's one. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to make a second half circle. My compass will work. And those can just be guidelines too. Okay, so then I'm going to draw a long oval, kind of like a hot dog in the middle. Some curly antennas. And then I'm going to match those half circles on the other side. So I did 2 half circles with my compass. Then we're going to draw the long hot dog in the middle. And then we're going to do the curly Q antennas and then match the other side. So your butterfly should be symmetrical, which means they're the same on both sides, okay? So asymmetrical means they're similar but not the same, and symmetrical means if you were to put a line all the way down the center of this, that both sides would be pretty much equal, okay? As close to equal as you can get. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're just going to draw some leaves. So again, you can do like an eye shape for leaves. There's all kinds of different leaf shapes that you can do. But I am going to do an outer circle. It's almost like a pointed oval. And then an inner pointed oval. And I'm also going to do that on my butterfly wings. Make half circles inside of the butterfly wings as well. All right, so I'm gonna do 2 more leaf sets. I think I'm going to do 1 teardrop shape. And I think I'm going to do 1 more eyeball shape, but only smaller than the first ones. So you can make your shapes any shape that you'd like. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine, okay? All right, so what we're going to do next, guys, is we're gonna put that aside for a minute and we're gonna go back to our circles and we're going to make some patterns on these. So, you know, this is really up to you, however you'd like to do it. There should be a different pattern in each layer of circle that you drew. So, for example, here's a layer in the center, so I can do maybe pinwheel lines. Okay, and then on this next row, I'm going to do some flower petal shapes. Okay. And then on this one, I think I'm going to eyeball a smaller circle. So there's 3 layers. And I am going, what should we do on this one? I think I'm going to make little flower petals. Long, so those long teardrops. That's what I'm going to do in the center of mine. And then I'm going to do pinwheel stripes around on the second layer. And again, we're wanting to make each side of the flower symmetrical, okay? So anything that you do on this side, you should do on this side as well. All right, and then I'm going to add some flower petals to the outside of this one too. All the way around. Trying to make them similar in size. Obviously they don't have to be perfect. No flower is perfectly symmetric in nature, so obviously these are abstract flowers. Okay, so I'm going to add some little curly cues from my tulip. And I'm going to add some pinwheel stripes on the outside layer of my tulip. So each layer should have a different pattern. And if you don't like these patterns, you can absolutely do anything that you'd like. You could do hearts, you could do diamonds, right? You could do checkers, you could do any pattern that you like. I just happened to choose these, okay? All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing with my butterfly and my leaves. I'm going to do pinstripes on that second layer of the wings. And then I'm gonna pinstripe the inner layer. I'm going to do a line down the middle, and then I'm going to kind of do vertical pinstripes, kind of diagonal, I should say. I'm going to make it look like a leaf. And then I'm just going to pinstripe the smaller leaves. So get all of that done, and then we can move on to the next step, okay? So our next step is actually going to be outlining everything with your Sharpie. So all of the lines that we just drew, we're going to go over them with our Sharpies, okay? So again, I am going on the inside and on the outside. It's hard to do upside down, but that's okay. And then I'm going to go over all of the lines that I drew in pencil before we paint in watercolor. That way our designs don't get lost. So I'm going to press pause, and I'm going to outline all of my leaves, my butterfly, and my 3 flowers. And when I'm done with that, I'll hit play and we can continue. Okay friends, so all of my flowers, my butterfly, and my 3 sets of leaves are all outlined. So every single line that I had in pencil is now drawn over with the Sharpie, okay? And I went ahead and I lightly erased over the Sharpie lines because I had some pencil lines that were kind of showing up. And once we paint over this, friends, because it's watercolor, you might be able to see it depending on how dark your pencil lines are. So before we move on to the next step, make sure that you don't have any pencil lines, okay? So I just went lightly over and just kind of erased that whole thing and then wiped it off really, really good, okay? So hit pause and make sure that all of your pencil lines are erased as well, okay? Since mine are already done, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to use my smaller brush out of the 2 brushes that you guys have. You also had a 3rd brush that came in your watercolor set. So if you want to use all 3, you absolutely can, all right? Okay, so we're going to paint our butterfly and our 3 flowers in a warm color. So in this palette, that would be purple, pink, yellow, red, and orange, okay? And then we're going to paint our leaves the green, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and on this, I'm going to do wet on dry. So what I mean by that is I got my paintbrush wet and then I dipped it in the paint. I'm going to use red. And for each different layer, so we're gonna wanna paint each little layer within our circle, within our butterflies, okay? A different color. So I'm gonna paint my pinstripes around my wings red. And again, you're gonna want to probably use your smaller brush on this, guys, just because some of those designs that you guys drew probably are very small. And if you were going to try to paint them with your big brush, it might be a little bit challenging. Not saying that you couldn't do it, but it might be just a little bit easier if you use a smaller brush. All right, so I'm going to paint the center, the hot dog shape orange. And I'm just working in slow, concentrated brush strokes. And then I am going to paint, I think I'm going to do the inside circle. I think I'll paint yellow. Okay, so my butterfly's done. And I'm going to show you guys one leaf and then one big flower just to kind of give you an example. And then we'll press pause and then we'll meet back up and press play when everything's painted and we'll move on to the next step, okay? All right, so we've got two different greens in this palette. I'm going to use the darker green for the outside of my bigger the pointed ovals. I'm going to use the dark green on the outside layer. And if you get a little bit outside the lines, it's okay because we're actually going to cut all of these out too. So if you can see, I kind of got a little bit outside of the line on that one, and that is absolutely okay. And then on the inside, I'm going to paint my pinstripes the lighter green. And I think I'm going to do every other. Kind of alternating sides here. Okay, so I'm gonna go and do my other leaves in the two greens as well. And I'm going to move on to one of the bigger flowers just to kind of work through that. So that way when we press pause, you guys kind of know what to do, okay? So I'm going to, I think, stay with the same color palettes that with all of my flowers that I did on the first one. So on my butterfly, I should say. So I'm going to use the red, yellow, and orange. And I'll probably use a little bit of purple too. So again, I'm painting in each layer and design that we drew. Red on, and I am doing the wet on dry, right? I'm going to paint little flower petals red. We're taking our time to stay in the lines, to have brush control. Dipping in our paint when our paintbrush doesn't have enough paint on it. It's hard to do this upside down. Working on a flat surface for you guys should be a lot easier. Okay. And I think I'm going to add some purple pinstripes. The purple looks kind of like black, but it's actually next to your pink. So I'm going to add some purple, every other purple. And I think I want to add some orange too. So I'm going to add some orange right on the every other, in between the purple. Okay, so you guys can paint your flowers and your leaves and your butterfly, whatever color patterns you want, as long as the flowers and butterfly are in a warm color and then your leaves are in a green color, okay? So once you guys are all done painting, in order to move on to our next step, everything has to be completely dry. So if you have a blow dryer and you want to run some heat over it for a few minutes, you absolutely can. If not, press pause and come back to me when your painting is done and everything is completely dry. I'm gonna press pause and I'm gonna get mine done, and then I'll press play when I'm ready to move on. Okay friends, so all of my leaves, my butterfly, my flowers, and my background are all completely dry. There's one more thing that we have to paint and dry again, okay? We're going to do a big rectangle wherever you have space on either where you have your butterflies or your flowers, okay? Whichever one you have more space on. I have a big space right here. So I'm just going to paint a big corner of this light green. Now we're going to cut these into strips for our flower stems. Okay, so just a big area of green, and then dry that and press play when you're ready to continue. Okay, so I went ahead and dried my green area. So I'm ready to move on. We are moving on to our cutting stage, guys. So go ahead, and our next two stages, you're going to need your scissors and your glue stick. So press pause and grab both of them right now if you'd like to, okay? All right, so I'm going to cut this green part off first. And I did 3 flowers, so I'm going to cut this into 3 pretty even sections. Just into 3 strips. And we can cut them down to different lengths when we're ready to put everything on, okay? So I'm gonna cut this and I'm gonna put those aside, and then I'm going to go around and cut everything else out as well. So we're only cutting on the outside layer. We're not going to cut on the insides of our circles or our pointed ovals. See how I just painted on the outside? I'm sorry, cut on the outside. So I'm going to just cut along that outside line. And I'm going to cut all of my 3 flowers, my butterfly, and my 3 sets of leaves. And this might take some time, which is okay, because we've got lots of time to complete these, all right, friends? So go ahead and press pause, and when you are done cutting all of your goodies out, hit play, and we can continue. Okay, friends, so all of my flowers and my butterflies are all painted, dry, and cut, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to lay our flowers out on our background to kind of see where we want them. They can overlap, they can kind of overhang, okay, off of the page a bit if you want. So we're gonna get I'm trying to hold this so you guys can see it, but we're gonna get our layout down. Obviously put down our stems and cut those to size. So I'm just gonna probably cut this strip in half. And I'll hold this up here in just a second. I'm just trimming my stems down to size. Okay, let's see if I can hold this up without it being glued to kind of give you an idea. Okay, can you guys see that? So I kind of have everything laid out. And once I have an idea of where I want it laid out, I'm going to take them all off, being careful not to lose anything, and we're going to actually glue them on. So because this is watercolor paper, friends, you want to make sure that you get your glue all the way to the whole back of your flower, of your stem, of your everything, okay? The entire back of your piece of paper with your flower and your leaves should be covered, okay, in glue. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the heel of our hand, which is right here, and we're going to gently massage all of those corners down flat. That way it never comes unglued, okay? So I'll just glue on a couple more of these. I'll glue on this flower stem. And again, I put glue all the way on this entire back piece of paper, okay? And I am going to put my little stem on. And again, when it's glued down, you want to use the heel of your hand and massage all of those corners really, really well. You can use your fingertips too if that's easier. My little stem is a little bit longer than the background, so I'm just going to trim that. All right, so again, we are covering the entire back of each piece that we painted and cut out, okay? So here's one of my flowers. Stem as well. And again, the whole back, see how it's purple? All of that's wet glue. Add the stem. And then massage all of the edges. Okay, so I think I'm going to do my last flower and then put on the leaves. I'm not sure if I have room on mine for my butterfly. If you guys do, then you can absolutely glue it wherever you'd like. Up in the corner on one of your flowers would be fun. I just don't know if I have room on mine for something else. So again, the entire back of the painting, and then I'm using the heel of my hand to kind of gently massage all of those edges down. And then these two stems are a little bit too long too, so I'm just going to trim those. And then I'm going to add my flower or my leaves onto my stems. And again, I put a ton of glue on that so it doesn't ever want to come unglued. So I will show you my finished watercolor flower bouquet here in just a minute. I've got 3 more things to glue, and then I will show you the my finished example. One here. Just getting my leaves on now. All right, so here is mine. And again, I didn't have room for my butterfly. Could probably make room, but it might just look a little bit too crowded. But you could put your butterfly up here in the corner and have it hanging off. I think that looks really cute. You could also put it over on this corner or maybe down here, wherever you have room. But absolutely adorable watercolor bouquet. I hope that you guys had such a fun time with this project. Next up, we have tie-dye. So get your areas all clean and ready for the next project. Bye, friends.